Action.
Okay.
All right, what's up, guys? We're here today to talk about boondocking slash primitive camping slash free camping, whatever you want to call it. What do you normally call it? I call it boondocking.
I call it boondocking.
We call it
too.
boondocking, and a lot of people we meet call it that, but also you'll hear a lot of people say primitive camping, which
But a
means...
lot of people maybe don't know what boondocking is when you say boondocking. I've had a couple people actually ask me what that even means.
Yeah,
So.
it sounds kind of weird if you think about it, boondocking. I'm not even sure where that comes from, but...
Boondocking is when you go camping and you have no hookups, and ideally you want to be self-sustained in your rig if you have a camper with you.
Yeah, boondocking is to me it is no hookups, but also there's a lot of sites that are still considered, I think, primitive camping or boondocking, and some will have water hookups, nothing else. Some will have electric and nothing else. Anyway, so we wanted to take a second to explain to people, and I'm going to do a video walkthrough of kind of our camper and how it works, what we do when we boondock. But I realized if it was only my perspective, it would just be number one reason I like primitive camping is usually it's free. It can be, we try to find free ones. A lot of the apps that we'll show you and what we use could be from $0 to $20, and usually it's free, but sometimes it'll be an honor system where you put $5 in a box, or either way it's a lot cheaper than $40 to $50
Yeah.
For a campsite for a night. So
I really love boondocking because most of the time we usually find like a remote place to boondock and there's less people. And especially this summer with everything going on with the coronavirus and everybody just like rushing out to go camping because there's really nothing else to do. Boondocking has been a really good way for us to just kind of hide off grid and be in nature alone.
Yeah, a lot of state parks. I think our number one, we would both agree, our number one, if we could just, money wasn't an option, it would be a state park.
Yeah.
Most state parks are on, very nice land, and they have hiking trails and nature centers and things that we like to do. Mm-hmm. But also we've realized that usually state park land is always state owned, and then so there's more land, and a lot of times around state parks, if you have these apps or ways to look it up, there's free camping, free primitive camping with no hookups 10 miles from a state park. So
which is just as beautiful
right.
as the state park.
So you can get a free site if you're willing to use a generator and your battery for the water pump and conserve a little bit, and then all day you can save the $50 for a campsite in the state park, primitive camp at night, and go pay the day pass, which is $5 to $10 in the state park, and use the facilities all day long, and then come back out and stay in your primitive site that was free. Mm-hmm. That's the best. That's my favorite part about it, is we can still explore, and you actually do a little more exploring instead of just checking into a campsite and then sitting there enjoying the electricity and the amenities that comes with it. So it makes us get out more when we're primitive camping, because you don't want to sit too long in a camper with no TV, no electric, and no water. It makes you get out and do more.
Yeah, boondocking definitely forces you to be in nature more, in my opinion. Unless, of course, you're boondocking at Walmart.
Right. We like to camp, obviously, in nature if we can. A lot of times when you're in the middle of, we've come through Missouri. Lately, we've come through Missouri and Nebraska and Oklahoma, and there's a lot of places without many people that there's not a lot of state land where they let you camp, and it's it could be hundreds of miles in between. So if not, we use one of those apps to find a Walmart, or Cracker Barrel is one. There's a lot of places that
Bass Pro Shop
that full-timers get to know. Yeah, I mean, that you can just park in, and they let you park in. There's apps that review it and tell you where to park in the parking lot. We do that sometimes if it feels safe when we pull in, but for the most part we like to be in nature, and there's so much land that's either Bureau of Land Management, state land, national park, national forest. When you go through national forest, there's
that's my favorite.
A lot of beautiful campsites that are primitive, and the best part about it is a lot of them don't take reservations. So even in the busy season, you don't have to worry about being filled, because a lot of people don't like to primitive camp, and they can't reserve a site, so it's first come, first serve. So you can usually find, especially with the apps. I know I keep saying that, but with the apps available, you can always find a site to camp for free, if you're in the mood to camp for free.
I would also say that boondocking has given us a greater appreciation for the amenities we have when we stay in a campground. We
Right.
appreciate it more, the water and the electric, and even like being able to take longer showers and being able to dump it, you know, whenever we want to. So that's been kind of eye-opening for us, I think,
Yeah.
with boondocking.
So we'll get the links up, and not to keep talking about that too much, but the apps you will see if you look them up and you're interested in trying it. You don't have to have a motorhome with all the amenities. You be in a car with a tent. You could be they specify it so much you can filter out if you need hookups, if you need a water hookup, because there are a lot that you don't have to go full hookups or primitive where you have nothing. There's a lot you can filter out, and you can look for sites that offer electric, and the site might only be $7 a night compared to 35, $50 a night. And you're still getting more of a campground. You don't have to totally primitive camp. So if you want electric, you can filter that out. So many places you can find, and using Harvest Hose, different apps we have that you actually pay maybe $50 a year to use, but then they have so many people that actually have electric hookups and let you park at a farm, or there's so many ways to do it that you don't have to stay in a private campground. And we're going to a private campground today. We're going to check into one because we need to wash clothes, and we wash clothes primitive sometimes, but we like to have a washing machine to wash our clothes a lot.
After a while, they start smelling.
Yeah. So basically, but I think both of us would say private campgrounds to us would be our last choice, because they're usually tight and they're busy, and it's, you know, it's more of it's less nature most of the time, is it? Basically.
Yeah. So we hope that you enjoy the video, and if you have any questions about boondocking, we hope that you'll reach out and ask us, and we'll do our best to answer them for you.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm out here in Missouri in a small town called Chillicothe, about 75 miles northeast of Kansas City, I believe. And as you can see behind me, I'm in the woods. I'm in a primitive campsite that was on state land near a conservation area right outside the city limits. And I thought it would be a good time to make a short video to tell everyone how we camp when we're not in a campground, a private campground or a state park, because a lot of people ask about the money side of things, living full-time in a camper, you know, because it gets pretty expensive, $30, $40, $50 a night to pay for a campground with water and electric. When you can do that a lot of other places and pay nothing, basically, maybe nothing to $10, $20. So anyway, I wanted to go through a short list of what we do, how we do it, a good way to get into it if you want to try it, just to try it for a night or two and see how you like it. But it's a fun way to save money. It's a fun way to save money and have a good time experiencing something different than a normal campground with neighbors beside you and knowing you're paying $50 a night. First off, I'm going to tell you what we do to find sites to camp in for free or minimum amount of fees. There's a couple websites and there's a couple apps I like to use. One is freecampsites.net. That's a website that I like to use. It has a pretty good selection, tells you if there's water hookups, if there's electricity, where the land's at, what kind of land. It's a pretty good website. But the three I like to use the most are three different apps that I found after researching a long time on which apps to use. There's one called Park Advisor. There's one called RV Parky, which I know sounds like a kid's game or something, but it actually is a nice app, RV Parky. And then the one I use the most, which is called Ultimate Public Campgrounds. And that one costs, the first two were free. The Ultimate Campgrounds cost $2.99, I believe, on Android. We both have Android, so I'm not sure about iOS. I don't know about Apple, but I'm sure if I can get it on Android, I'm sure it's available on Apple. That app will tell you, it has a pretty good list of zooming in and showing you state land, BLM land, county parks, city parks. You can filter out about anything you want, whether you want an RV dump, if you need to dump your sewage, if you want water hookups, if you just want a primitive site with nothing but a fire pit. Pretty much wherever you go, that app will pull up a site, and it's amazing how much free land there is out there to camp on if you want to. The way I like to do it without going too long-winded about it is I'll use one of those three apps, find a a parking lot, whether it's a state land with campgrounds actually built in there, or if it's just a parking lot where you can park in the back of a store. Those 3 apps are very good about telling you with reviews that people have left, whether it feels safe, whether it, you know, wasn't a good area, how nice it was, what kind of accessories were there, if they had toilets, if, you know, it tells you all about each area. I usually try to get the address and then put it into Google Earth and look from, you know, get a good view of it. And sometimes you can tell that way whether you're getting campsites with tables and fire pits or whether it's just a field, because a lot of times the state will have a certain, you know, 100 acres you can camp on, but there's no sites. It's just a driveway, and you just go in there and pull in the woods and pick a spot, and you see people just parked over here in the woods, parked over there in the woods. It sounds a little sketchy, and sometimes it can be a little sketchy, and if it is, obviously we get out. I'm not gonna say if it feels sketchy with our whole family living in a camper, you know, but for the most part they're pretty quiet, because most people don't know that it's out there, and that's why we wanted to do this video, because we didn't know it was out there until we really researched, and there's not a whole lot of information online about it. There's a blog post here and there, and it's hard to find even where to start to go, or how to know where you can look them up, or in the websites that the government, most of these are state run, you know, letting us camp on our own land. And the websites or wherever you go to look it up is very basic. They don't tell you much about it. They don't tell you whether you can camp. It just, you know, pretty much says public land. So it takes a lot of research, but those apps, Ultimate Campground being the ultimate app for it, seems to be the best. It will definitely give you some good spots that you can pick between here and there, and it's got a lot of city and county parks on it. Why we prefer boondocking, obviously, you know, a big part of it is the money you save when you're on a tight budget trying to live full-time in a camper without a lot of income. Once you pay 40-50 bucks a night, you know, that adds up quickly. So we like to do it because it's cheaper, and it's an experience that, you know, a lot of times you'll find a beautiful spot nobody's at because no one even knows it's there. All right, I'm back again. I wanted to show you the campground, the free one I was just talking about and giving you all the recommendations on. So this is what it looks like. This is why we do this for free compared to paying to stay in the campground. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't like staying in campgrounds. We love staying in campgrounds. Anyway, this is it. That road you're looking down, that's about a mile gravel road to get down here. This is what it looks like coming in to the campground. Down that way is some vault toilets, and down this way is the campground. So I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna walk down toward our camper and then show you the hookup we have for primitive camping, and show you how pretty this campground is and places that you can find that are absolutely free. These are the campsites. There's about 5 on this side of the road, about 5 over here. There's about 5 over here, and then I'll walk you back to where there's a circle where we parked. But this is it. This is the campground that is totally free. It's a state property, a conservation area run by Missouri. They were actually in here when we pulled in. They were cutting the grass, just heading out from cutting the grass when we pulled in yesterday about 1. Hasn't been a soul since then. All right, and there's us. This is our campsite. We got to pick the best one, which is back under the oak tree at the very back of the campground, since there was no one else here. But here's the side beside us. There's us over here towards, right down there is the walking trail. About 500 yards you would be to the water right down there. We walked it yesterday, but I'm not going to take you down there this afternoon. Anyway, it's right through the woods. There's the pond. So now I'm going to show you how we what we look for the most when we're setting up our boondocking experience. First thing we do when we want to go and we know we're going to be primitive camping is make sure we have a filled up propane tank, which is right there. I don't know how well you can see in there, it's kind of dark, but there's our propane tank. Ours is a 25 gallon. There, obviously, with everything I show you on here, it's whether you have a travel trailer or a bigger motor home, or, you know, it's different sizes. You might have a huge tank, you might not have a tank. You might have a portable tank you set outside your camper. Either way, this is how we do it, and this is the most basic, I would say, for a small motor home. Very small tanks. no bells and whistles, but it gets us by. So anyway, you want to make sure you have enough propane because your hot water, cooking on the stove, the fridge runs on propane. So you got a good filled up propane tank. That helps you a lot when you decide to go primitive camping, because in a trailer, almost everything will be able to run on propane if it's set up the right way. Propane is what we like to have filled up. First thing we stop, I turn the propane on, crank up the fridge, which is behind here, because it runs on propane. So you got to get the fridge running on propane if you have a fridge. Maybe you just have a cooler, but that way our groceries stay cold, because it runs, whether you're plugged in or not, you can run that on propane. Fresh water tank, we have a 30-gallon one that's underneath our couch in there, and here's the lock for it. I won't open it up, but there's a hole right there. You can fill up your fresh water, which is your showers. If you have a clean tank, which we do, you can drink out of it, but we don't like to do that, because a lot of times we're filling up in dirty spigots outside of parks, and we don't really trust it. But we use it for showers and washing dishes, and if you conserve it, it'll last you a couple days of boondocking if you do it the right way, depending on what size tank you have. There's a pump in there with the tank that runs on the 12 volts coming from the battery, which is right in this compartment. There's the battery right there. That's a deep cycle marine battery. We have one that lasts us. It'll run your lights and your water pump. We've never drained it out. So I mean, we could get some more batteries. We'd love to have solar at some point, but this one charges. This one charges when you run the car. So every time we stop, it's charged up by the time we get to our next site. There's the hot water heater, runs off the propane, and this in here, which is what this motorhome has. A lot of them will have this. A lot of them don't have a built-in generator. That's the generator. You can take the front off and start it from in there, or we have a button inside you just push and it cranks up. So if you want to have power, you can run your generator really all night if you wanted to. It runs straight from the gas tank in the car, and it'll run everything you want on a power, just like you're plugged in. We like to try to save gas, so we usually don't use it unless we really need the air conditioner. Unless the girls really need the air conditioner. And that's it. Once you have enough propane, you can pretty much boondock as long as you need to till you run out of water. Till you run out of water, run out of propane, or you need to dump your sewage. That's one of the main things. Is if you use enough of that water, your storage tanks for the sewage and the gray water will fill up quickly, and then you have to find somewhere, an RV dump, to dump them. But those 3 apps I discussed have filters in there where you can filter it down just to look for an RV dump, just to look for a place to park. And there is way more free RV dumps than you would think. City parks have them. A lot of Love's travel stops have them. A lot of rest areas have them. A lot of places have free places to dump your sewage, which is about the only thing you don't get when you're in a primitive site. Other than that, you can carry your water with you. You can fill up your propane. It's just getting rid of your wastewater. But you can always find somewhere. You can always find a dump somewhere, usually within 50 miles of where you're at, or to the next campground you're going to. So that's what we like to do. And I to say all that, we're going to a campground tonight, actually, because we got to wash clothes, and it's going to be very nice to plug in and have electric. But with a place like this that costs $0, it feels a lot better to stay in a place like this. And that's it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them, and we will try our best to answer them. And we will put up some links to those apps so you can check them out at the end of the video. Now I got to go help out with some homeschooling, and we will talk to you later.
What's this place called?
You have to excuse my French. This place is called Poosey Conservation Area. Pardon me.